Hello, I read Tuesdays with Morrie and I have some thoughts. This book is sold as Guide to Life, but I think this book is just from one perspective, a male perspective. It is from American culture. Actually, culturally, we have differences. And whatever Mitch portrays as a life lesson is too shallow in our cases. This book is about a student who visits his professor who is suffering from ASL each Tuesday, and the professor gives that student lessons. Basically, this book has its beautiful parts. All right, I'm not saying that this book is all bad. It teaches us how to not be materialistic, how to not chase money and not enjoy the process and just chase after the wrong things. It does focus on that, and this is my favorite quote from this book. And I am also a teacher, so I do understand all right whatever Morrie is saying, and I do sympathize with him at a certain point. All right, so this professor Morrie has ASL, and that is a disease where your nerves stop controlling your body, and your body slowly perishes and you break down piece by piece, and at the end you can't even breathe, you can't even speak properly, and it's just everything comes down to death. Basically, there's no cure. There was no cure at that point. My student's name is Mitch Albom, and this Mitch Albom is very much focused on earning money, and is running after money. And that is when he gets to know that his professor, that his favorite professor, is really sick, and then he goes to visit him, and then they plan out every visits every Tuesday so that they can talk about life. The professor talks about death, life, aging, marriage, children, and much more, regrets, and many other things. My problem here is that this book is sold as the ultimate life guide, or this is how you should live life. But for it to be sold like that, and it has sold millions of copies, I believe, and it's it's a bestseller, and it's kind of self-help because it doesn't give much solutions. All right, so I have three major problems with this book, really. The way Morrie talks about marriage, the way he talks about children, the way he doesn't talk about financial independence, and fourth and the last problem, the way he talks about divorce. Morrie is dying, all right? He is an old man who has come from a really old generation. Right, so this book was written in either 1998 or 1997. So Morrie is really old, right? And he is, I guess, 78 at that point when he's dying. He's 78 years old. So he talks about marriage as he says that marriage is something that you should experience once in your life. And I am all for that. Marriage is something really beautiful, and you should all experience marriage at some point. But my problem is that the way he tells why marriage is important. He says, if you don't get married, you'll have friends, have other people to talk to, you'll have other people to hang out with. But when you're dying, when you have ASL like me, and you're dying and you're coughing up at night, you won't have anybody beside you if you're not married. That is a very shallow way of convincing a person to marry. But think about it. Morrie is a man, right? His wife, her name is Charlotte. Think of this exact situation in Indian society, in our culture, Indian culture, all right? Think about it. People do get married for this thing only, right? People get married so that the woman that comes into the family can take care of him, the husband, as well as the husband's parents, while her parents are basically living in their own world, and they believe that the daughter-in-law that we brought home is a servant, right? You see how problematic that is. Because for this book to be sold as a universal life guide, I think many Indian men must have taken lessons from this. You see how it is forced on Indian women to take care of Indian men and their parents. You see that, right? And if Charlotte, Morrie's wife, if Charlotte was sick with ASL in Indian society, do you think Morrie, an Indian man, would have taken care of her? My another problem is the way he talks about not chasing after money, right? And enjoying the process of life. But I think that comes from a very privileged background because he has money, right? A person who has money gets to enjoy the process. But someone who doesn't have money, he has to run after money, right? He has to run after money. When I think of myself, I am still worried about how I'll raise my daughter alone. I'm worried about it. I'll have to run after money. I also come from a very privileged background, I would say. But this advice is just too shallow. I don't get why people love it so much. Right. Then another thing is about how he doesn't talk about women at all he doesn't talk about, yes, his mother died. He talks about his father, how his father did not, care for him much, and he doesn't want to die the way his father died. But he doesn't talk much about women. What about women? What about women in your life? Why do you not talk about Charlotte in your life? Why do you not talk about what she is facing? Another problem of mine is the way Morrie talks about divorce. So when Mitch asks, why do people get separated? Why do people get divorced? When they love the other person so much, they love the other person so much, but after 6 months or 7 months, we hear that they're getting separated. So why is that? Mitch asks Morrie, right? And Morrie's reply is, again, very, very shallow. He says that, I feel sorry for your generation. He says, I feel sorry for your generation. Another thing that he says is that people, they don't know themselves. They don't know who they are. So they don't know who to choose as partner. So that is why they get divorced or separated. You cannot just say, sing and dance and live happily and preach it to be as a self-help book. If you're selling it as a self-help book, give me answers. How should I find myself? I told you, right? Morrie was very old. And when he was married, I don't think there was a legal system that supported divorce. Another thing that I'm pissed off about is the way Morrie talks about children. He says that children give us emotional support, and when we're old, we need someone to take care of us. That is why you need children. And he says it's good to have this experience of children. Children give deeper meaning to life. And that may be true for many, many people. Children do give deeper meaning to your life. I love my daughter. If you see this sentence from the genders, from the lens of gender roles, I believe Morrie just gets to enjoy fatherhood by not taking much responsibility apart from providing financially. There are many men who want to settle down, get married, have children, but they don't bear the responsibilities that women have to face after giving birth to children. Women do most of the labor. Morrie talks about the experience being very nice. We need to see whose experience are we talking about here. That's it. I believe this book, Tuesdays with Morrie, was written from one man's perspective about his life. I am all for it. I liked reading it. It was an easy read. I liked it. I liked some quotes. I liked the way he looked at life. We need to consider that Morrie is a man living in America. We need to see that. So these were my major issues with the book. Give me woman's perspective as well as a man's perspective. Don't preach this book, don't sell this book as life's greatest lesson and only talk about one man and his life and his very shallow thinking.